Hi friends, welcome back to my channel. My name is Sammy George and today we are doing a troubleshooting video on coverage, particularly on acne and acne scarring. A lot of the tips and tricks that go with troubleshooting our general coverage with our Seint IIID Foundation are the same when we're looking to improve the coverage that we're getting and the longevity that we're getting with our acne and our acne scarring. So if you're interested in checking out more, please stick around. Don't forget to like and subscribe. And as always, thanks for being here. So let's jump in. Today, like I said, we are going to focus on how to get the best coverage with your Seint IIID Foundation, but in particular, for those of us that are working with acne and acne scarring, because while acne is clearly a saturation of color, right? You see the color deviation on the face. The other major concern that people, myself included, have when it comes to acne is, what can I do to not emphasize the look of texture on the skin? And while complete transparency, if anybody tells you that they can remove the look of texture from your skin with makeup, they're not being honest with you. But there are certainly ways to minimize the look of texture or just to not emphasize it. And that's definitely my goal, both with mature skin in areas like large pores, wrinkles, fine lines, and then certainly on the areas of the acne and acne scarring that I have. So a lot of the principles that we're going to talk about today are really the same, whether you're looking to improve your coverage on rosacea, melasma, dark circles, hyperpigmentation. It all comes down to one main thing. And yes, there are tips and tricks and strategies, but the biggest thing when it comes to coverage is color. There is clearly a multitude of colors, from light all the way through to dark, to match the tones of your skin. And if you were color matched by me, it is likely that you got more than one color because you have more than one tone. And if there's anything I've learned over the 2.5 or 3 years that I've been both a customer and an artist with Seint, working with my own skin and with my clients, is that in order to get the best coverage and longevity on our skin, we have to match the darkest points first. So we have to treat our skin for what it is. It has different depths, it has different saturation levels. So if we are able to incorporate a color that matches our darkest points, then we can use our all over main shade to really match our skin tone, make sure that we're matching our neck, our chest, whatever it is that you want to match in your color match, and we can get really good longevity and continuity in our coverage and color coverage because we're taking care of the darkest points first, and then we're adding a main shade to really match overall. So while Seint has all of these different colors, there's a couple things to know. Is that not all colors provide the same level of coverage. Now, do all of our highlights and contours give coverage? Yes, that's the beauty of 3D Foundation, is that your highlights and your contours all provide coverage. Therefore, you can use what color is needed where and get coverage all over your face. The beauty of all this is that you don't need to know exactly what I'm talking about. You just need your artist to know and then be able to explain to you what colors to wear in what location. But everything changed for me with my makeup when I started incorporating a color corrector on the darkest points of my face first. Previous to that, I was using a main shade, a contour, and a brightener. The traditional like starting 3 for Seint. And while I got decent coverage, I didn't get the best coverage that I could because I was expecting one color to match this, to match this, to match this, to match this. And realistically, how can we expect one color to match different saturation levels, different tones on our skin? So if you're somebody who right now has been using Seint IIID Foundation and you're not getting good coverage, or you have to use a ton of product in order to get good coverage, you likely have a color that's too light. And maybe that shade worked in the winter and now you're tan and you're noticing, wow, I have to apply more to get really good coverage. Or I'm putting it on and I'm noticing an increase in texture. Increase in texture, areas of large pores, fine lines, your crow's feet, your acne scarring is due to having a color too light. So again, that's why we always want to go back to matching the deepest points of our face first, then bringing in our main shade. And I'm going to show you that here today. So when I say that there are a couple things that you need to know for lasting coverage, longevity, acne scarring, all of the things. The first is make sure you have the right colors, but truly you can use two colors, a color corrector and a main shade, get better coverage and better longevity, and overall use less of these two together than you ever would of your main shade alone when you have discoloration on the skin. So it's all about how you apply and having the right colors. And how you apply is the second tip, trick, strategy that you need to know when it comes to acne scarring, or general discoloration, that you are going to apply it differently, and the tools that you use will matter. So now that we've broken down that color is key and application matters when you want to get the best longevity on your acne scarring, or your general discoloration, let's jump in and do it. I'm going to show you how. Before we get started actually showing the makeup, here's one other thing that you need to remember. With your Seint IIID Foundation, one of the biggest problems that people have with coverage and longevity is what they're putting on underneath the makeup. So I personally do not recommend a primer unless you are incredibly oily, and not like average oily, but like really, really oily, and you need to mitigate some of that oil production. But beyond that, you don't really need a primer. I actually recommend, if you're having a hard time getting your makeup to last or stay, or it feels like you're getting slippage, to try your makeup with nothing underneath and see if that makes a difference. Because if it does, then it's something that you're using on the skin. Because the main thing that you want to look for in any product that you're putting under your makeup is silicone. Any product that has that natural slip in it is going to prevent the makeup from staying. So if you feel like your makeup is sliding off, it's not lasting, the first thing I would do is check the products that you're using underneath your makeup. So for me today, I have my vitamin C serum and my silicone-free sunscreen, and that's all that I'm going to use on my face. That's all that I use any day, except if I'm having like a dry period, and then I add in a silicone-free moisturizer. So we've talked about how to prep the skin. How to prep the skin is really important. The next thing to know as we talk about application is brushes and tools matter immensely when you're talking about covering acne, scarring, or generally when you are building up your makeup in light layers. If you want it to remain skin-like, the tools that you use matter. So let's talk about the first one. This is the Perfector sponge. The Perfector sponge is absolutely key to getting a skin-like finish without having excess product sitting on the face. So this is what our Perfector sponge looks like, dry and dirty. So you will see that when you properly prep your Perfector, it is going to double in size. So how do you properly prepare your Perfector? Because a prepared Perfector makes all the difference. So what you're gonna wanna do is, you're not gonna use it dry. It needs to be damp and cold, but not wet, not saturated. So what I do is I go into my bathroom and I use either my Dawn Power Wash dish soap, I have one of those up there, or my face wash, and I saturate this under cold water, rub in my soap and cleaner, really work it through. And now if you're cleaning it with soap, one of the key things that it's gonna do is it's gonna force you to really saturate this to get out all of the suds. So run this under cold water under your sink and keep squeezing until you don't have any soap, any suds, anything left. Then wring it out. Wring it out over and over until there's nothing dripping. No water is dripping throughout. So we're literally squeezing it from the top down, making sure that there's no water that is left in your sponge. Then I like to grab a microfiber cloth and I'm gonna squeeze it a little bit more. And you might think I'm crazy, but I'm telling you that making sure that this is properly prepared makes all of the difference in your makeup application. If it is soaking wet, it will pull things right off. If it is dry, it's gonna leave it looking patchy. So you wanna make sure that you go through that process of saturating it with water, wringing it out, and then just leave it in your microfiber cloth or set it like upright in a cup while you're waiting to use it. So while you're doing your makeup, and then it'll start to air dry down. So right now it is cool and damp, but it is not wet. And that's how I know that it is ready to rock and roll. So what else do we need Tool-wise, for the perfect application, if you are somebody who is dealing with acne and acne scarring, we are going to talk about specifically applying your color corrector directly where it's needed. So you are going to need a brush that has a small tip like this. This is the spot brush from the Demi line. You can definitely use it for Demi, 3D, whatever you need, but it is the best tool for spot treating those areas of discoloration without having to put color on area that it doesn't need to go. And it has this nice little fluffy end on the back, so you can really help tap the product in. The spot brush, for me, is an absolute must for anybody who is looking to treat acne or acne scarring. Then you're gonna need your main foundation brush. For me and for most of the new folks that I color match, I recommend the blush and bronzer brush. This is how you can apply color corrector to large areas. Your main shade, you can use this for bronzer, lip and cheek, almost full face of application with this one brush. Then we have the detail brush. This is going to be perfect for contouring. It has this rectangular top on it, which makes it literally so simple and so easy to contour. You can get precision contour with this. You can keep it really natural looking, whatever you want. And it has this small end, which is perfect for detail work, whether this is when you're applying your main shade, your brightener, your color corrector, any small areas of the face, this is perfect for. And then the other brush that you may want to consider specifically for acne is the smudge brush. And after you put down your full face of application, you notice that there are some areas that you want a little bit more coverage on your acne. This guy is actually really great because of the density of putting a little bit more coverage exactly where it's needed. So this is the smudge brush. So I would say if you have the blush and bronzer brush and the detail brush, in general, you can do like 99% of the things that you want with your makeup as long as you're using the perfector. When you're looking at spot treating specific areas, it is definitely worth picking up the spot brush and then considering the smudge brush. And you can check this out when we get to the actual end of our application. When we are applying our Seint IIID foundation, we are always going to start with the darkest color first, because if you remember from what we talked about earlier, we want to match the darkest points of our face first with the darkest color from our 3D foundation line. And for me, this is my color corrector. This is where all of the troubleshooting coverage, like tips and tricks, come together, and it is, are you using a color corrector in your areas where you have those deeper saturation levels? So for me, what I'm going to do is I'm going to start by tapping just the smallest amount onto the areas of my face that you generally see that I need to tone down some of the discoloration on my skin. So underneath my eyes, and what I'm doing is I'm buffing it into the skin. So I'm taking the small end of my detail brush right now, and I'm just really small circular motions working it into the areas that you see that I have discoloration on the face. I have this scar on my nose, broken capillaries underneath the nose. Tap a little bit more on the side of the face here. I have these areas of darkness, and for me, you'll see this is starting to really tone that down. I have discoloration almost from the eyebrows down. If you are one of my customers, you will know where you would put your color corrector if it is needed based on your color match form. So on your color match form, I mark the areas on your face in blue that you're going to be using your color corrector if color correction is relevant to you. So I'm just using the small end of the detail brush now, kind of working it into some of these smaller areas. As I'm going to transition into this larger area, I'm going to go ahead and grab the small end of the blush and bronzer brush, and I'm just going to work this in to this larger area, one little tap at a time to cover up the redness. And this is going to be kind of like my first coverage for this acne and acne scarring that you see. So just looking at these two sides of my face, you can see that we've started to tone down those color concerns by matching the deepest points of our face with our color corrector. Because here's the thing, if your color is too light, not only is it not going to do a good job giving you coverage, but it's also going to increase texture. So if you're somebody who has acne or acne scarring, you already have texture. And your goal is definitely not to increase it. At least mine is not. So if I'm using a color too light on those areas, not only is it not going to give me great coverage, but it's also going to make my acne and scarring texture more apparent. So far, I've done a light layer of mango on the areas of discoloration on my face, mango being my color corrector, and I did it in this buffing motion to take care of my redness, hyperpigmentation, sunspots, the scar on my nose, the broken capillaries, and the depth that I had in my chin. And you'll see we have much more continuity in our tones now that we've taken care of those dark points first. But let's talk about our acne and our acne scarring. If I just keep going in all over in this large area where I have all of this acne and acne scarring, I'm gonna start adding color corrector on areas where it's not needed. I've already put a light layer down and taken care of the general redness. So what do I need to do now to really target the scarring and the active acne? I need to spot treat. So what we're gonna do is take our spot brush, just a little tap at a time, teeniest bit of makeup, and we're gonna cover these one at a time. So do you see what a difference it makes once you go in and you really spot treat directly on to that discoloration with your color corrector? You can really start to eliminate a lot of that saturation that you see on the skin. Because here's the thing to remember, like right here. So this is cystic acne here. It is textured. It is highly textured. If I put a color too light on here, one, it's not going to cover, but two, it's going to emphasize that texture. It's the same thing that would happen in the areas where you have large pores, fine lines, wrinkles. If you put a color too light, it will increase the look of texture. So overall, I would say just color correction alone, we have done a pretty good job of treating all of that acne and acne scarring. Now that we've spot treated our acne and scarring on one side, let's go ahead and touch up just these couple little spots over here. The major key to getting good coverage and good longevity is that color corrector. Now that we've done our color corrector, we can move in and quickly finish our makeup with the rest of our 3D foundation. So what I'm gonna do is take the small end of my blush and bronzer brush, and I'm gonna tap one tap at a time into my main shade, which is the second darkest color that I have. And here's the key. You are no longer going to swirl. We are not gonna swipe. You want to press because we have laid down our color corrector strategically. So since we were strategic about where we put our color corrector, we don't want to move it. So now by pressing this into the skin, this is going to do a couple things. One, it's going to help with coverage because we're adding in a thin layer of makeup. But also, I'm going to go in and match the darkest points of your skin first. And then I'm going to take a look and say, okay, so what do I need to do now in order to match their skin wherever they told me they want to match it? So what do I mean? So me, I like to match my neck. So I'm looking at what combo of a color corrector and main shade is going to match my neck. So all I've done is now pressed in one little tap at a time anywhere that I applied my color corrector. You want to put this anywhere you applied your color corrector and then anywhere else that you might want coverage. So I have no color corrector on my forehead. I don't have any color concerns there. I don't have any acne or scarring concerns there. So I left this area alone. So all I'm gonna do to make sure that I get a little bit of coverage here and that everything is matching is I am going to tap on a little bit of my main shade just right in the center area because all of my highlights and all of my contours provide coverage. Because I don't have any coverage concerns in this area, I'm gonna go right in there with my contour and skip putting anything else underneath it. Because I have so much color, acne, scarring concerns basically from my brows down, that's why I put my color corrector and my main shade there. So when it comes to contouring, for me, like I said, I love to use the detail brush. And what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna tap that brush in sideways, applying a little bit more pressure than I would have to with my color corrector or my main shade, because our contours are a little bit drier and they're meant to be, because we want it to be more precise in our application. So I just have contour on half of the brush, and I'm gonna start at the top of my ear and I'm gonna tap, because remember, I do have color concerns underneath. So I'm tapping this in because I put down my main shade and my color corrector underneath. I don't want to move those, but also I want to get a little bit of control over where I put my contour. And if I swipe, it's going to do a couple things. One, it's going to move everything I put underneath, and you'll see I have like fully covered this acne here. If I swipe, I'm going to remove everything that I did. But also, I'm not gonna love the look of my contour because it's gonna start to look muddy. It's gonna start to pull too low, too close to these smile lines, and drag the face down. Where the goal of contour is to lift the face, to add in to those areas where we naturally have shadow, just a little bit of additional depth and really slim the face. So let's go do that over here. So same thing, we're just pressing this on from the ear to the corner of the eye, and then I'm flicking upward a little bit so that I get a good blend. And you can make this as drastic or as subtle as you like. But remember, your makeup is gonna warm up on your face over a couple minutes, so you don't have to blend your contour directly, like exactly to the level that you want it to right away. Sometimes that leads to over blending. So just go ahead and add this in around the top of the cheekbones, the top of the hairline. When you're doing your hairline, you want to go ahead and flick that up into the hairline so you don't have any lines, and then bring it back down. And we're getting a really nice blend going. You'll see I don't have any harsh lines, but even if I did, our perfector is going to take care of any line that we think is too harsh, any excess makeup, and it's gonna help marry everything together beautifully. So our contour is what creates definition on the outside of our face. So we've done our hairline, we've done our cheekbones, now we're gonna do our jawline. And what this does is it kind of acts like Spanx for the face, you guys. It's gonna slim things, it's going to create and build back in natural shadow, and really give you that three-dimensional foundation look. Now you also have the option of doing a nose contour, adding a little bit of contour under the lip. When we're adding contour, we're playing the game of light and dark. So anywhere that we add darkness is gonna recede. So we're essentially adding this shadow to create a recession, to pull back, right? If we pull back underneath our lip, it's gonna make our lip look larger, more pouty, if you will. And then what we're gonna do in our final step is add brightener to the center of our face, because playing the game of light and dark, if dark recedes, then light comes forward, and that's gonna cause someone's eye to be drawn to the center of your face. So your brightener is your final step in your 3D foundation, and it's gonna be the lightest color that you have, and it's gonna be based on your undertone. So when an artist matches you to a brightener, what they're doing is they're looking at the tones that you have in your skin and using a brightener to really help pull everything together. So I like to start by applying my brightener here in the center, on the outside, and then I'm going to use what's left on the brush and really just marry that together to keep this very light-handed, to also add a little bit of coverage. And then I'm going to look and say, like, okay, is there anywhere else here that I feel like I could use a little bit of additional brightener? And I'm just going to take my finger, you could take the small end of your brush again, and really just tap this. And you see we've created some additional brightness underneath the eye, but nothing so drastic that it looks unnatural. So we're just keeping everything really natural looking, creating a bright center of the face and some darkness on the exterior to pull back. We're gonna go in our T-zone, down the center of the nose. And remember, the brightener is the lightest shade that we have in our palette. And we've talked about light colors are going to emphasize texture on the skin. The beauty of the way that we've done our makeup today is that we have taken care of the dark spots first. So when we're adding in this brightener, one, we're being really light-handed and strategic, not going into our areas first where we have the most texture, but also we've taken care of the darkness first. So this bright color that we're putting over top, the color that's lighter and brighter, isn't going to have that immediate effect of emphasizing fine lines and wrinkles like it would if you just went directly onto the skin with a brightener. So if you have been doing your 3D foundation in one layer and you're putting your brightener underneath your eye without any color correction, without any main shade, and you notice that you do have some depth in your skin there, and when you put your brightener down, all of a sudden you feel like it's aged you 10 years instantly, it's probably because you need a color corrector, because you went in with a shade too light on discoloration. Okay, so we've added our brightener into the center of the face, and here's the thing. Right now, this looks a little crazy. This is where you trust the process. This is where the perfector comes in. So we've used our color corrector, our main shade, our contour, our brightener. We've taken care of our acne, our discoloration, but now we've layered our makeup in order to do that and get the best coverage. So we want it to look like skin, and we want to remove that excess, and that's where we use the perfector. So all I'm gonna do is take the perfector anywhere that I have put layers, but not directly onto this acne, unless you feel like you have a cakey amount of makeup on your coverage, which if you're spot treating and then adding a light layer of your main foundation over top, you should not. But if for any reason you do, then just press this a little bit along any of the areas that you might have that acne. You can use the tip here and just remove a little bit of what could be excess makeup. But I'm gonna go ahead and go everywhere that I layered or anywhere that I'm prone to creasing. And I'm gonna use this to get like a nice final blend. Remember I said if your contour looked too harsh, you could press this right over top and it will just nicely blend that contour line and marry your colors all together. So now I'm gonna take a look, and before I go in with a bronzer, a lip and cheek, here's what I'm gonna do. I'm gonna look at my acne and I'm gonna decide, is there anywhere that I feel like I need a little bit more coverage? The only area that I see is this guy right here. So this is where our smudge brush comes in. This is where the dome end of the smudge brush comes in. And what I want you to do is open up your 3D foundation, put a little bit of your main shade and press that over top, and make sure that if you're working with texture, that you're getting the color throughout the texture. So sometimes when it's raised, like we don't get that highlight underneath, so we still see some of that color underneath. But all you need to do is press on anywhere that you'd want a little bit more coverage. Now, if it's in the area of your contour, that's okay. Go ahead and press on there. Add a little bit right here. These are just areas that I see poking through a little bit where I'd like a little more. Okay, so we have this additional coverage here. So what do we need to do? In this area right here, I'm just going to take my perfector. It is damp and cool. And I'm just gonna press this in to remove any of that excess color, but get a little bit more coverage. Right here, I'm gonna do the same thing. But right here, this is in my contour line. So I'm gonna go back to my detail brush. I'm going to add the smallest amount of product, and I'm just gonna tap this over top to make sure that I'm still getting that contour color. And now we have basically added in the lightest layer a little bit more coverage to that acne spot of concern. And then here's what we're gonna do. We're gonna do our bronzer. If you're gonna do bronzer, we're gonna do our blush, and then we're gonna strategically add a little bit of Vanilla Dust setting powder to get the best finish on areas of texture. Okay, speaking of bronzer, I'm gonna take the bronzer end of my blush and bronzer brush. I'm just sweeping a little bit into Bella to make sure I have the lightest hand of makeup, going to the high points of the face, which is where the sun would naturally hit, and adding in our bronzer for a little bit of glow. Now, if you're somebody who has a lighter neck than your face, at this point, This is how you can get yourself to matching. If you want to match your neck and your face, pull a little bit of bronzer down your neck. By adding a little bit of the bronzer, if your neck was lighter, this should really pull everything together for you. You can also bronze across the nose and the chin. I have a lot of discoloration in these areas, a lot of additional warmth already, so I don't want to add more warmth in. Essentially, all that would do is me run the risk of emphasizing the warmth that I already have in my skin. But you could run this all the way across and on the chin as well. Our second to last step is going to be lip and cheek, and I'm going to do a little bit of a combo today. So take Melody, and I'm just going to take the small end of my blush and bronzer brush. Make sure that I picked up a little bit of product. If you tap in a lot and you get too much, you can just tap it on the back of the hand. And now I'm going to go 2 fingers out from my nose, and I'm just going to add in a little bit of that peach color until I'm happy up the contour line. The beauty of using one of these peach colors, like Frenchie or Boardwalk or Saint IIID or Melody, is that it doesn't emphasize any of the redness that you have there. So if you've been nervous to try a blush because of discoloration, redness, rosacea, then go ahead and try one of these in the peach or pink, one of the peachy pink or peach families, and I think you'll be really happy. The last thing that I'm going to do, just because I absolutely love a dewy look to my skin, is I'm going to add Sunshine State over top. So Melody is a satin, which means it has more of a matte finish to it. So I'm going to go ahead and add in a little bit of glow to that area with Sunshine State. So while Sunshine State looks highly pigmented, it is very, very sheer. It has a small amount of pink to it, but it mostly has this golden glow, and it's the perfect way to add in a little bit of that dewy, glowing look. We are gonna finish up this look with a little bit of our new illuminator, which is Nova. Nova has a beautiful golden base to it. I'm just going to squeeze my perfector. I'm gonna swipe in here, and then I can control getting a little bit more of that luminosity and glow onto the high points of the cheekbone without putting it into areas that are incredibly textured, because it's the same concept. If we're using something light or something light reflectant on areas that are highly textured, you may run the risk of increasing that texture, where I'm kind of keeping mine in between where my crow's feet and my fine lines and wrinkles under my eye go. But I just love that dewy, glowy luminosity to my skin. The other area that you can put it that I think it just looks so beautiful is definitely the Cupid's bow. You can do it underneath your eyebrow to add a little bit of that like final look to your eyeshadow. Right on the tear duct here, we don't have a lot of texture, but right on that tear duct, adding that brightness under the brow here, you can add a little bit down the nose, Cupid's bow, and then again, the top of the cheek. I'm gonna grab a little bit of my suede lip liner with my multitasker, and I'm gonna do those same colors that I have on the cheeks, on my lips. So I'm gonna start by lining with suede, filling in with Melody, and then topping it with Sunshine State. Okay, so what do we think? We have amazing coverage. All of our redness is gone. All of our discoloration from our acne and our acne scarring is gone. We've like neutralized all of it. Here's my final tip. Our perfector and a little bit of our vanilla dust setting spray, vanilla dust setting powder, and just tap on to any of those areas, right onto those acne spots, to kind of decrease the glow there, and therefore the light's not going to reflect off of our acne, and it's just gonna make it a teeny bit even less noticeable. So hopefully that tip makes a little sense to you. Less light reflecting off of it, less texture that's emphasized. We're gonna finish this up while we're talking about vanilla dust setting powder. As you're looking at your face, if there's anywhere that you want to mattify things, if there's too much shine or glow, if you tend to get oily or already are going to have like an increase in your oil production because you get oily in the T-zone, you can take your vanilla dust setting powder, just the smallest amount, and you can set anywhere that you want to mattify things or anywhere that you want to reduce creasing. So something to remember, if you're going to powder underneath your eyes, in your smile lines, you want to make sure before you go in and powder that you don't have any foundation sitting in your fine lines and wrinkles to begin with, because then you're just going to set the powder that's in your fine lines and wrinkles, and you're not going to like that. But you also want to use the smallest amount. So I am just pressing in and using that entire one press in under this eye, one here, and I'm using all of that one little bit of vanilla dust setting powder to take care of this area underneath my eye. So that is it, my friends. That is all of my tips and tricks, my troubleshooting strategies when it comes to coverage, acne scarring, and in general, discoloration. So hopefully you found it helpful to learn the benefit of color corrector and matching the deepest, darkest points of your skin first, remembering that our skin has multiple tones in it, therefore we want to treat it as such. And then when it comes to application, our keys with acne and acne scarring, making sure that we are targeting the discoloration with a small brush and getting our color corrector directly onto the point of need, and then adding coverage with our main shade by pressing on a second layer, and then all the other tips and tricks like adding vanilla dust setting powder, reapplying in areas of concern. So hopefully you found today's video helpful. Hopefully you learned something about acne and acne scarring, and you can see that you can get amazing coverage and still have really light hand, natural looking, glowing makeup finish to your skin. So that's it for me this week. As always, thank you guys for being here, and I'll see you again next week.